about these, ministers and what they, feel about the state of, what's going on with the church. But we got to get into, these great men's lives. These are men of God, and you all see them, in the pulpits, and you may not know, like, personal or where they come from or why they do what they do. Bishop, we'll give you, to start. This is your home.
Age before.
I'm just a guest. I'm just a guest. Just a guest.
Where was it, and what influenced you, to go with the gospel?
First of all, thank you all for having me. Even though we're in my home, it's still, you all didn't have to have me. And even though this is my son and my cousin, y'all didn't have to have me. But really, I'm not like Pastor Welton. Pastor Welton was born into ministry. His father, his mother. My mother was a call girl. I grew up in New York City. It wasn't until 9 years old that I even really, the first preacher I ever heard on the radio was in New York on WLBS, Reverend Ike. You can't lose with the stuff I use. And that was only because my mother let the radio stay on after she wasn't saved. My stepfather wasn't saved. But it was my father, who I thank God for, if nothing else, who said to my mother, I need to go to Detroit because I was going to die in the streets of Detroit. And I was. And it was when I got to Mackin French Road to little wooden house that I grew up in on the east side of Detroit, that I met Reverend Ananias Davis and First Lady Davis, pastor of the Welcome Baptist Church, Welcome Missionary Baptist Church.
Missionary.
And church wasn't an option. I met God at 9.5 years old. And as far as ministry, I ran from it. I was a junior deacon. I would sit in the deacon board meetings and watch my grandfather go through hell with the deacons. It was a deacon church. Pastor Well don't know about that. It was a deacon's church. It was a deacon's church, and so I watched him. I said, I don't want to do that. So I pursued business. It wasn't until I was 23 years old that I accepted the calling. At a very treacherous time in my life, I was going through something. We won't say what that was at the time, but I was going through a little something, and I received my calling. And I didn't want to do it, but I don't regret not one day. I've never thought about quitting ministry. Never in my life have I thought about quitting ministry, no matter what.
It's a blessing.
Pastor Welton, I'm going to get that question right back over there to you. What is it that influenced you to make the call or to accept the call at such a young age? We had a conversation the other day, and I was telling you, I'm like, man, you are one of the people who actually inspired me because you weren't afraid when we were growing up and we were younger. You know, we'd be running in the same circles, and you'd be somewhere to mic, and I'd be hiding behind the drums. You know what I mean? So tell us about your story. Tell us about what got you to where you are.
First, I agree with your dad, man. It's an honor to be here with both of you, and thanks for the privilege of sitting with you, man. Of course, Groundbreaking Studios is just that. Thanks for thinking enough to invite me because your dad hasn't. So I appreciate you for that.
Shots fired.
Let me say, no, your dad's right, man. I grew up in a home with a father and a mother who were and are a great example of what love really looks like. I served the Lord, straight out the gate. I don't have one of those stories. I didn't get shot 9 times to obey God. You understand? I didn't do that. I had my times in school. We don't need to talk about those times on camera. But no, the truth is my father pastored a Baptist church in River Rouge, Michigan called Union Second Baptist Church my whole life, man. And on my 18th birthday, my 19th birthday, my parents moved from Detroit to Las Vegas, where they now are. They pastor Greater Evergreen Church in Las Vegas, Nevada. So on my 19th birthday, my dad signed my lease for my apartment, and he and my mom got on a plane and went, 3,000 miles away. So
Sink or swim, huh?
It's different because I really had to sink or swim.
Mm-hmm.
Life is a lot different because my parents in no way are absent, but distance makes things a lot different. You know what I mean? I never could run to my mom's house and get something to eat if I had a rough day. You know, I couldn't, if I had a apartment that I couldn't afford, I had to make it work. I can't go to mom's house. It's gone. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people don't know that even in those times of ministry, personally, I was really trying to navigate my own space as a man while trying to trust God in ministry at the same time. So it created such a different type of path for me. You know what I mean? Having a father in your life just makes things different. And so with my father and mother as an example, you know, consistently, I started preaching at 17. It was my senior year of high school. Preached my first sermon.
Pressure.
Yeah, it was, but actually it wasn't pressure. It was preference. See, everybody ain't running from God. Some people tell him yes, you know, and you're not more anointed if you run from him first. Some people just obey what the Lord put on their life, you know. So I preached it was a youth service that was happening at a church called Greater King Solomon in Detroit. And they invited me to do like the young people's welcome or something. So I get up there to do the welcome, and my dad's sitting in the back. And I do this welcome. And then it just happened, boy. And then my dad sits me in the car and say, "We need to talk about you preaching." It was the first time he brought it up because my dad, believe it or not, did not want me to be a preacher. So he put me through, you know, Bishop said I don't know nothing about it, but he put me through that rigorous Baptist process where I had to sit with the deacons for 90 days, you know what I'm saying, before you got to preach. When I told my dad, I think I'm called to preach, he said, "You sure?" I said, "Yeah, I'm sure I'm called to preach, man." And Greg, he said to me, he said, "I'm going to get you ready," because summertime came, right? So all the other kids are ready to go and have fun in the sun. And my dad said, "No, you want to preach, right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm called to preach, man." He said, "Cool." He said, "You're going to go with me to work tomorrow. I'm gonna teach you how this go." I said, "All right, Dad." So I wake up in the morning, and my dad said, "You called to preach, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Cool, we going to church." I said, "It's Monday, man. The girls is outside." He said, "Oh, don't worry about that." He said, "You called to preach." I said, "Yeah." He said, "We going to church." So then we go to church, and we get to the church, ain't nobody there. I'm like, where the people? Where the crowd? He said, "No, you said you called to be a preacher." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Preachers don't start with crowds." He said, "Preachers start with needs." I said, "So what you mean?" He pulled out a mop and made me wash and mop all the bathrooms in the church. And before he ever let me preach in the pulpit, he made me sit next to the deacons on the pew. And so I would sit there in the Baptist church. Before you can preach, you got to lead devotion and all of that good stuff. So I went through that. And then some things happened. My father left that church, and it kind of put me in a spot between the people and my parents. You know, it's the church I grew up in, it's all that I know. But they mad at your parents for leaving, and they don't know how they feel about you staying. So now at this time, I'm the young preacher. I'm about 19, 20 at the time. I'm the young preacher. They're looking for a pastor. Church is filling up. You know the story. It's a constant repeat. Church is filling up. The young preacher preaching and people coming. Man, them deacons and trustees got so mad at me. They took whatever anger they had out or from my father on me. It was a crazy time, man.